All right, so welcome to week 7 of the Agentforce Specialist Study Group. This week we have Meg Pugh presenting.
Thanks, Mayor. Okay, so I'm Meg. A lot of y'all have worked with me before. One of y'all currently works with me. I'm repping G10. So I have not worked with Karen or Leah, so it's nice to see your faces and say hello. But it's also really just wonderful to see all of you guys. We're going to do prompt engineering part 2. I haven't been able to attend a lot of the sessions, so or any yet, but I've been doing some of the studying offside. So both my projects are going live this week, so I have a little bit more time. So I've gone through. If you guys have any questions, of course, you can raise your hand. I have a little hand and symbolize that. If you don't have any questions, I do have a spot for the end. So if you want to save them, you can also throw them in the chat. All right, so here's our table of contents. We're going to talk about R&R, not rest and relaxation, roles and responsibilities. Then we're going to go through the breakdown of that. Considerations for prompt generation, defining some of the objectives of prompts, and then structuring them effectively. I also have a small activity where I'm going to quiz you guys, so stay on your toes. And then also leveraging some of the dynamic aspects of Salesforce. And then I've got R to the 3rd power. You'll see what that means, R cubed. And then a spot for questions. I also have a resources slide so that you can see where I've gotten all of the information that I've put together today. All right, so the first part of prompt templates is identifying the right user roles to maintain and execute the prompts. You have your AI dev and your engineers, you have your admin, but you also have your end users and prompt managers. So there's multiple layers that are involved in managing and creating and utilizing the prompt templates. So I've got on this next slide here, this is a lot of information, but I know we're going to share this deck. I wanted y'all to have this. This is the AI admin, prompt manager, the end user, and the dev and AI engineer, as well as the permissions that are necessary for each of those roles to do the functions that they have. For example, like an AI admin, that's kind of your overall AI role that's going to manage all of this stuff. Then you have your prompt manager, and they create and manage prompt templates. If you're, in consultancy, you also have AI or admins, Salesforce admins. You also have people that are like power users, maybe admin lights. This is kind of the same thing, right? You have your AI admin, you have your prompt managers. Those are little people that are a little bit more savvy than the end users and can help with the reviews and the refinement of the prompt templates. And then, of course, you have your end users, the people that are going to be utilizing and executing those templates and needs permission to be able to do so. And then you have your developers and AI engineers. They're the ones that's going to customize the AI. They're going to be integrating prompts with workflows, et cetera, et cetera. So and the LLM, developing that custom integration with the learning language model. That's what your devs and AI engineers are going to be doing. Over here, you'll see that the AI admin needs to manage AI features and modify all data permissions, OBS. And then we have our prompt manager. They may need to modify metadata through the metadata API. So they need that prompt template management permission as well. For end users, the consideration here is they need to have that execute permission, but they also should only have access to the AI features that are relevant to their job role. So while end user is all encompassing, you might think about sales, marketing, service delivery, customer success, all of those things. So those permissions are all tied into that end user group there. So on the next slide, we're going to talk about the personas and diving into that. End user can be broken down into multiple things. And then, of course, we talked about the dev and AI. They're going to need that customized application and API integration permission, as well as any access for the version control for AI scripts. So considerations for creating our awesome prompt templates: you got to define the objectives, you got to structure them, you have to leverage what the tools and resources Salesforce has, like merge fields. We know how to do email templates, I'm sure. If we're already talking about AI specialists, we all should know how to do email templates. So it's kind of the same thing, whereas you're building an email template and you have a merge field for an account name, or you have a merge field for the lead name or a contact. Those tools and resources are able to be leveraged within the prompt template functionality as well. You're going to also want to ensure compliance, so making sure that it is compliant, it's not toxic like my ex. And then you want to test and optimize. All right, so defining the clear objectives for prompts, it's the who, what, and how. The when is omitted here because the when is whenever they trigger it, right? Who is going to be using that prompt? That goes into that end user, right? So like sales, is sales going to be using this prompt? Do they have access to the fields that we're putting into the prompt template, right? They need that permission. So what is the outcome of the prompt? The goal, the overall goal? What do you want it to accomplish? And how is the output going to be used with the who? How with the who? Say that fast. I'm surprised I said that one well. All right, and then structuring the prompt template effectively. It needs to be clear, contextual, and actionable. You need to be able to guide the AI. I don't know if any of y'all have used AI like ChatGPT or even an image generator. I attempted to use an image generator for the very first time, and let me tell you, I messed that up. As a person who is an artist, I screwed that up from the top to the bottom. Okay, I came back with a blue cloud car that looked nothing like what I wanted it to be. And that was my learning for this exact situation, is like you have to be very clear in what you are asking it to do. You want it to provide relevant data points. So using those dynamic entries, like in the example that we have on the right, like the lead name, the product name, any previous interaction details. That's what that example is there. And you want to make sure that it provides a useful response by putting in the input of what that output needs to be. That's the biggest part when I've been practicing, is like the output, what's actionable for the prompt is very important. I have some best practices across the bottom here. You want to use those placeholders like the merge fields for the lead name. You want it to be concise but detailed. And you also need to consider tone and style, right? If you need it to be a professional tone, or if maybe I want it to be, I have a client that I've been with for 4 years, maybe I'm in managed services and I know this person is very casual and they really like a casual tone more so than a very like strict tone. Those of us who have been in change management know that the way you say things matter. So that tone is very important here too. All right, so I have an activity for y'all. I don't know how many of you have actually studied this, but I have a couple questions and you can either come up on the chat. It did not disappoint. That's awesome, G. Okay, so on here, I'm going to ask a couple questions. I want to see just how knowledgeable you are and what types of prompt templates that we do have. So one of the first ones that I think is really fun, which one allows you to select more than one object? Anybody know? Katrina, yes, yes. Awesome, yes, flex. That's my favorite. I like the flex concept, mostly because I don't like to be, how do I say this professionally? I don't like to be put in a corner, okay? Baby doesn't like to be in a corner. I like to have flexibility. So when I first started with like looking at these, I went straight to flex templates because I was like, I want to see how much I can actually do. So if there's a use case that doesn't cover in any of these other templates, your grab bag is the flex. All right, my next question is, which one uses is really good for service replies or live chat and messaging sessions? Nobody knows this one? Katrina, you are killing it. It is F, grounded service replies. Awesome. All right, last one before I start kind of going in here. Which one of these template types are used in order to update a record or even this puppy, I'm so sorry. Give me just a second.
I love this format. This is so fun.
Yeah, this is good. I like this.
This dog, I got this puppy, y'all, and everybody was like, oh, puppies, they're so great.
I want to see the puppy.
They're cute for a reason. There's certainly a,
Yes,
survival mechanism to it.
This is the
So
cool
true.
loves.
Oh,
And this is Rusty.
he's a small puppy.
He's so small. He's still a baby. Are you still a baby? Yes, you are. You're still a chewing baby. We brought in a piece of, hey, we're not doing that for sure. So go outside. Sorry, y'all. Really sorry. They are nuts. Okay. So which one of these flex template types will actually populate the field with the output? Nice. D. Awesome. You guys are on it. So you guys have been kind of researching and looking into the different template types before the call. So awesome. Thank you so much. So I put in the back of the resources a link that has a basically a description for each one of these different types of product template types. So you can go in and see which ones you want. The one I think I'm going to be using the most in my role is going to be the flex, the knowledge answers, and probably case summary because I do a lot of service cloud, and then the work summary because I do some field service. Is there anything that you guys think in your roles? I'm in change management. In any other roles that are in here, I know Katrina, you're a BA, that you think you're going to be using the most?
I think that, I mean, just because of where we are, we're still in the pre-revenue, and sales emails will be a big one, especially because my salesperson is not a large technology user, right? And it's been I want to talk about an exercise in change management. Honey. So.
Yes. Sales seems to be the culprit across every project I have ever been on. Both that I'm on right now, sales are the ones that need things automated the very most. It's like they're the ones that want to just go into the system, put in the bare minimum, and get the outputs without the input. Like it's nuts.
Exactly. Like just
And
create
honestly,
a quote. Like, well, you still have to tell me
honestly,
what-
that's what we want. We want them selling, and we don't want them to be bogged down with administrative burden. I can assure you, I will sit there and work with data all day long. I'm not going to be bringing any more revenue into my organization, but being able to have a streamlined opportunity where the data is going to be accurate because they can communicate in natural language with the system, that's going to get more revenue in our business, which is going to give us opportunity to expand these offerings within our organization. So,
Yeah.
I think that we'll use record summary a lot at my company because we have a lot of requests for like the leadership team to have like a customer overview of like traditionally they would click a button and they would have like a PDF generated that gives them an overview of the customer, what's the recent opportunities, what do they currently own, things like that. But now I could see us using AI of just like using a prompt and dynamically pulling in all of that information instead of us creating a static PDF that's only pulling in a limited amount of information.
and the fact that if you, for the mobile perspective, once you have it turned on and it's just there, being able to have that in their phone, if they're going to go meet with a client, be able to say,
Especially
okay,
like the VP level, they're not going to like open up their laptop if they're sitting in the parking lot of a customer, not a chance.
totally.
Yeah.
What about field service? How many of y'all have had a field service rep say, I ain't doing this. I don't want to look at this.
All of
I
them.
don't want this
All
work
of them.
summary. Yeah, I think work summary might be a good one for me. I want to play with that one a little bit more. It's probably the one I've played with the least because I haven't been on field service in a hot minute, but I really want to dive into that one. Anyone know, I think of all of these that like contextual service replies, that's really awesome. But I feel like my service reps are so in tune, right, with the system and how they use macros, they use all these things. I feel like my adoption of contextual service replies might be harder.
And you bring up a great point, right? Most of the things we've all been talking about has been internal users, but really being able to offer that from a customer base, being able to have those knowledge answers, it's going to offer what we've all been using for the last several years, right? With Experience Cloud and knowledge base in just a completely different way, in a much more user-friendly way, I believe.
Yeah. And knowledge is another good point. Like I'm implementing knowledge AI articles right now for a project. And I feel like there's such little adoption because there's just not enough information about how it works, right? And then with knowledge answers, being able to say, you have access to this information, here's AI giving you that information, might increase adoption for the knowledge base if they know that, okay, there's actually useful information here, I just don't know how to find it. Now AI is pulling that information forward for them to be able to see that and be able to know what's in their knowledge base. Awesome. Sales pitch coaching is the one that I talked about with sales team once, and they were like, I don't need no coaching. Whatever. Okay. We all
I
know.
thought that too. Yeah, I was like, I don't think they're gonna like this.
Well, here's the deal. If and everyone's getting leaner and leaner and leaner, and that VP of sales cannot replicate themselves. And
True.
I think that is well, and Meredith, you and I have talked about this, right? I like to be able to have a little coaching feedback on some of this stuff, and I'd like to be able to have that before I actually it's very vulnerable, right? I don't want to expose that to someone yet until I've gotten a little here's my initial pitch. I think that's going to be a tool.
Oh, yeah. So it's like, yeah, you don't have to be vulnerable in front of a person if you can have that coaching, that first pass from an agent, and then you're more prepared when you go to the person.
More prepared, more confident.
That's a really nice way to
and you're
think
really
about
able
it.
to sell your message across and be like, yeah, I'm ready to go.
I think of it as a way of validation of firming up your story and everything, and you're firming up your pitch.
And can compare against, if we think about the way that this works, compare against other, hey, compare me against one of the top 5 sales users and what they use in their pitches and how does mine compare to theirs, right? And that gives you an expansion and of a cloning of a person, if you will.
Looking at this list, Meg, I've been on some of the Slack channels and these new workflows are coming out. I imagine that there will be even more prompt templates with each release. So I'm glad that you brought this up, and I'm definitely going to study this because it'll be easier to learn as we go versus trying to learn them all later.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I think it's really, I have the exact same thought, Meredith, and I think it's been kind of huddling in the top of my mind and not being formatted, but I was like, there's no way this is it, right? And I know this looks like a comprehensive list. It really does. And I know they added the flex model, but the more we use it and the more we provide feedback, the more that they're going to be able to put more out there for us to use.
And this is some of the shift I was talking about, Meredith, where it's gone from theoretical to more user focused as they're making this shift to the Agentforce specialist from the AI specialist. Is there's so much of this that has come out and since the inception of all this, and I think that that's the direction this is headed in.
I love it because I think, reading about the Einstein trust layer, I'm like, what I get myself into? This is super hairy dev feeling, but this feels approachable and we're able to talk about the use cases. I like it.
And keeping the end in mind, right? How are you going to use this on the end and working backwards? It makes it more palatable, I think.
Yes. My biggest challenge has been the executive suite. So what you said, Mariah, the adoption of that, I didn't even think about that. The summaries for them in terms of a leadership perspective. That's great. I actually just made that note. So thank you. I'm going to take that back. All right. Any other thoughts, comments, anything about product templates, prompt templates? Supposed to wait 10 seconds to be a good facilitator. G taught me that. So I just shake my shoulders until. All right. All right. So leveraging dynamic variables. So we all know what merge fields are. In the resource that I have for you guys in the end, when I hit the leveraging, it's got 20 different ways, right? You can use it in flows. There's a lot of really granular ways to leverage dynamic, but I feel as the first start of what we usually do, mostly merge fields is where I start with, right? I understand merge fields. That's the one thing that I grasp really well. So when I was looking at the dynamic aspect of it, I'm thinking about what fields can I actually pull in? What fields can be generated here? So I have 3 examples The one thing to remind yourself is that based off of whatever prompt template type you select, the objects that you associate will be determined on that. So for example, like a sales email, you have your recipient, which is the contact or the lead, you have your sales rep, and then the current organization, so the sender's organization. If you jump down to Flex prompt template, this is the one that says the objects that you have associated with the prompt template. Current user, current organization. So that's that flexibility, hence Flex. And then in the middle here, that field generation prompt, you can select the object that you've associated with that prompt. So the difference between the Flex and the other ones is that you can select more than one object for Flex.
And Meg,
Okay.
that piece is what they cover as a part of the Innovator. You get to get some hands-on experience with that, just in case you guys are wanting to be able to go, oh, okay, this sounds cool. But as you're working through that Agent Blazer series, you get a chance to work with each one of those. So, and then it takes you into the super badge.
I'm getting that super badge. Hide and watch, y'all. I'm doing it.
I was thinking, and maybe this housekeeping parking lot is maybe we could do like the badge together if anybody's interested.
I am.
I've done those like on Salesforce Saturday.
Yeah, same. I did that for like a mentor session before where it was like they would all do them and then we would talk about it at the end, ask questions. So maybe it's like we started on our own and then we do like the challenge together or something like that.
Yes,
I'm
I love
down.
that. I did link the prompt builder project trail in the end of this too. So if you guys wanted to start there to look at the where it webs, you can go from that too. All right. Any questions on merge fields? I know that these are only 3 examples of the different prompt types, but these seem to be the top 3 that were used across multiple organizations when I looked. So I just went with top 3. Any questions, any comments on the merging of fields and how you use those in those templates? No? Okay, that was 8. I'll take 8 seconds. All right, so this is R cubed. This is the one that I feel like is our biggest bread and butter, right? Review, revise, repeat with all of the prompts. So who's managing our prompts, right? Our prompt manager, that's who's going to be looking at this in consultation with your AI admin, right? So starting with previewing the generated responses, right? There's a preview section in the workspace for Prompt Builder. You just click preview and it will let you preview that. That's simple, right? The things that we need to evaluate when we're looking at that is it relevant to what we were outputting? Is the goal actually completed? Is what we asked for that prompt actually generated in here? Is it missing anything? Is the style and tone appropriate? Is it factually accurate? Because I don't know if y'all have been into ChatGPT or maybe even the AI summaries on Google, but I have been led astray on Salesforce functionality myself with the AI Google. I'm like, that's pulling from somebody's opinion. So looking at some of that is really important for factual accuracy. Consistency as well. We don't want a bunch of willy-nilly things just randomly going out because our input is not accurate. And so our output is all kind of wonky and it's just sending all feral stuff out into the world. We don't want that. Toxicity, it actually looks for toxicity. I have myself put in emails into ChatGPT or even text messages and say, tell me the toxic undertones, right? It does it and it works. It's a good cheat code for anybody that has toxic people in their lives. Not toxic positivity, Mariah. Okay, just toxic negativity.
My children complain about my overwhelming toxic positivity. This is the complaint that 25-year-olds give you, just so you know, in case anybody's wondering.
And then of course bias, because bias is a big deal. You know, when whatever we're putting into the LLM, that learning language management system, we are pulling from, right? So if there's bias going in, there is bias coming out. So we got to make sure that we're reviewing for that bias. And then revising prompt templates. So you can revise and regenerate a resolved prompt and response multiple times and make revisions based on those updated responses. Each prompt will run a new call to the LLM. So it's not like when you generate over and over again, it's going to give you something different, right? You can generate, tweak. It's going to pull again. It's going to do a full pull. So it's going to have the same prompt, maybe different responses, if that makes sense. And then there's also the Einstein trust layer, which I feel like feels like a lot for people to understand, but it's really looking for toxic content for us. So even though we're evaluating our quality with our toxicity over here, it's also going to say there's harmful content. So not just a toxic tone, but maybe something pulled through that was harmful in nature. Maybe it had poor language choices. Or it had, aggression in there or anything like that. If that's accidentally pulled, it will give you that. I know that's blurry because Salesforce was blurry for me, but harmful content is going to show up just like that. And it's going to give you that notification to say, hey, this is harmful. We probably don't want to send that to somebody that we want to pay us some money, right? Let's not be harmful. And then large prompts. Sometimes a prompt will come out and it is just way too large for the Salesforce model to use. It's going to generate in the resolution panel that's just using the open AI models that are there. So you can still see that prompt. It's just not something that you're going to want to put out into the Salesforce world. So you'll have that information there. And then it'll loop back around, right? So as you generate more prompt templates, as you have more responses coming in, you want to preview them, evaluate, revise, make sure there's no harmful content. And if you have a large prompt consideration, and then loop back in. It's a cycle all the time. So a governance policy for prompt management should be suggested to our clients, right? You might say, hey, here's your prompts. But in change management, we're like, but what happens when we're gone, right? We need to make sure that our clients know that they have a cycle of governance that they need to implement and utilize.
Hey, Meg.
Yes.
One thing that I wanted to kind of add there is some of these are kind of out of your control. You don't get to really control how the prompt builder is going to work, with the exception of the consistency piece, right? You can help mitigate some of the broad consistencies by giving clarified instructions and really boxed in instructions to your prompt builder as you're going through here. And the recommendation that I keep coming back to is start small, start very precise, start as granular as you can, and only open up from there. Just like we all learned in Salesforce when it comes to security and exposure and what you open up to users. This is not really any different. It follows the same kind of Salesforce model, right? So I just wanted to kind of say that there's some of these things you don't have any control over, but that consistency factor, you do have some control over by the instructions that you include as you're building these out. Yes. When it comes to actions, et cetera. So
yes, I like to think of it like when, if I'm writing a paper for college, which I haven't done in a long time, but if I start with a brain dump, right? Simple. I'm putting my thoughts out. Then I have my outline. Then I have my rough draft. And then I have my final draft. Mm-hmm. Have you ever tried to sit down and start writing your final draft? And you're like, I really didn't know what where to build from there. So once you start with like the smaller piece, you're like, oh, that would be better if I added this in this spot, instead of trying to just dump it all in one and then getting a bunch of information overload and being like, oh, and now what do I need to revise? It's easier to break it down from smaller and to build on it like a house with foundation and then studs and drywall, just like that. Okay. That is what I've covered for today. I feel like I went through that way too fast. Is there anything that I missed, Mariah, that you think I should have talked to?
No, this was super helpful. I know we've all asked kind of some questions along the way. Are there any remaining questions that we haven't answered? Because I'll stop the recording after that. We can kind of open it up for larger discussion. Okay, let me stop this. Oh, love the resources. Thank you so much. And we will put this in the drive. If it's not already in the drive, that'll be accessible for everybody.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. No, gentlemen. Thank you, ladies.